Hello, friends. How are you today? Well, I want to talk to you about the no data in the chart, which is right under here. But first, if you could like the video and subscribe and share it if it resonates with you, that would be wonderful. Thank you for doing that. Also, I am going to be teaching the energy course. I put on pause moving forward with it for the last 2 or 3 weeks because as soon as I offered to do the course, I went through this massive transformation. So while I was doing that, I made a bunch of, I did a bunch of materials and stuff. So if you have emailed me, there was the exact perfect number of people that expressed interest in doing the course, and I will be sending you guys out an email this weekend and talking about times for the course and how to move forward. So thank you all for contacting for me and your patience, and now let's just move ahead. So here's what the chart looks like as I make this in the middle of the night. It's on Friday night. There's been no data since 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. And the rest of this chart here, as I make the video, hasn't appeared yet. So I wanted to show you what is going on with this chart. The most key feature was this. It's really interesting. Before I knew there was no data, I looked at this image and I thought, that reminds me of the Monster claw, that brand. And they have this just big, claw mark from a monster that's just like, That's what that reminded me of. And then I thought, ooh, and that's weird, right? Because it's like a threatening monster sensation with that. But then an interesting thing happened. And I want to show you this. The qualities are essentially like the higher the quality, the closer to the truth of, the natural frequency, the closer to the truth of what a thing is, the higher its quality. That's what I would say, like the least distortion. So on this chart, you can see that the red quality has moved up prior to no data, up to 25. Now, it had been at 25 for weeks and weeks with just like periodic once-a-day dips. And that was broken. That trend was broken, as I talked about in my last video, actually on the 29th of January, which coincides with the truckers entering Ottawa, which is really interesting. In Canada. And now here, it's really, really interesting because this is up at 29 now, the green quality. And the green quality, in my view, represents kind of like the state of humanity. And the green quality has been spiking up to 29, 30, 31. And these used to be typical highs prior to the lockdowns. It hasn't really been high like that. And it's really interesting because during the whole virus situation in 2020, which is now 2 years ago, when the quality went up above 15 and the frequencies were above 25.2, that's this chart here, that is when a genetic karyotype would appear on the chart. I have 2 videos on that from 2020 in March and April. Okay, so now this is the weird thing I wanted to show you. Look at this. You see these flat lines here? You have a flat line in quality in the white here. You have a pretty long flat line here, then up and down, but still flat, extending to here. The longest this went on for was for red. Then you had this flat line here, okay, with these weird, jagged, vertical movements in the chart. And look at this in green. At first I thought there wasn't a jagged line in green, but then I noticed that the green movements were like very, very much like these little flat rectangles. Was there a jagged line? Was there a flat line in green? I don't know. Like actually, now that I'm looking at it, it appears like there was here, it could just be that the green quality is low, but no, it's often low like that before. We haven't seen that. At any rate, it's very clear in at least, especially the red and the yellow, that there's a flat line. Now, this is what's interesting. The last time that we've seen a flat line like this, and I addressed this recently because it happened one other time in the chart recently, was when we had the technological effect. And I have a whole playlist on the technological effects. So the video where I first discussed this is in there. But it really feels not natural when it just flat lines like this. Okay, so I just felt like that was weird. Is it a sign of some kind of interference? I really don't know. But I just want to point that out to you. And it's interesting that it was most prominent in the red and the yellow, because the red has been a major factor. It's almost like, what I've been wondering? I've been wondering if there are certain energies that want the red to get constricted again and back up to a line at 25. Because interestingly, this unnatural looking line is at 25-ish. So strange, isn't it? Okay, now let's look at the next thing. This is really interesting. The frequencies here, look at this. They were just really moving all over. Now, part of this is because the not going down like they usually do. Like they've been dipping down maybe once a day or something like that. But you see here, they're really just staying up above 19.7, okay? And then they move back into this really narrow, thin, thready range here on the 18th on this chart. So we're just going to have to watch this trend and see what happens. You don't get any dip down here, which was the previous trend. So you know what it's like? It's like I made this video on the walls of Jericho, and I've addressed it in a couple of recent videos. So check that out if you haven't seen it, because I explain the energy dynamics of the whole Jericho effect and how it creates change energetically. But essentially, it's like these, attention of millions of people on the concept of freedom just broke this line, okay? Broke the trends in the red resonance. And then after that was broken, the green, look, see, it's up at 25.6. It's been, it's been lower than that. And recently under 25.2. And it's almost like, I feel like I'm just wondering if there's a question of how do we get that back into a narrow constricted range? How do we get a rein on these people? I don't know. So I just don't know. So, all right. So here we go. The solar flares are having, some C-class flares, although not on the 18th, just on the 17th here. And then the geomagnetics have also been pretty calm. So this is what I wanted to say to you. What do you think happened here? And I've made many videos. I'm going to act as if you've seen some of them as I say this. But I'm going to speak as if you've seen them. But what I wanted to say is that, someone texted me tonight, Coco, and I want to say thank you for texting me. And she was telling me how she was perceiving the energies, even though there was no data on the chart. And it was very dramatic for her and unusual. And what I want to say is the way that I perceive energies, I kind of just read the energy that's floating out there. And what I've been perceiving is this, it's like this anxiety and this sadness, but this respect and love, because it's very interesting. Okay, we have two major global events going on that could cause stress in humanity, and the major events are this whole strange Ukraine situation number one. And number two, the situation in Canada. Now, it's interesting because the data stopped at about 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and this is when they were really cracking down on the people in Canada, and by this time the news had really started to get out about it on all the alternative media channels. So, you know what I wonder? I wonder if there was an outpouring of compassion. There's a lot of American support from American people for what's going on there from the people, and I think probably from around the world, right? Because their movement has spawned all of these trucker convoys all around the world. And what I've noticed is that when there's an event that where people are potentially being harmed, where there's a call from compassion from the human heart, you do tend to get the white resonance on the screen. I spoke about it recently, but I spoke about a situation with the Ariana Grande concert in 2017. There was a gateway where the energy, the white resonance, didn't come through. And shortly after that gateway, that concert happened where there was a terrible event where people were hurt, and there was this outpouring of compassion around the world because it was global news, and the white resonance just poured forth on the chart. You know, another example of this was during the Hawaii missile crisis. I don't know if you guys remember that. I think that was actually also in 2017 or 2018. But when that happened on the chart, I remember it was January 13th of that year, or one of those 2 years, and it was incredible. The Schumann was like solid white. I mean, it was incredible. It lasted, I don't know if it lasted 1, 2, or 3 days. I want to say it lasted 3 days, but it was incredible. But anyway, so it's an interesting coincidence that the timing of this, and then I don't know what's going on in the chart. So I just wanted to ask you to share, what do you think is happening? Because I feel like I'm wondering, is there an outpouring of compassion, of concern, and is that causing fluctuations in the chart? Is that causing images on the chart? You know, and here's what I'd like to invite you to do. I know that a lot of you track how are you feeling and you look at the chart. Well, now I'm asking you to do it the other way because we don't have the images. How are you feeling? And when you feel this way, what are the images usually like on the chart? And I invite you to comment on that down below. Okay, so, you know, I'm feeling this way, and usually that means this is going on in the chart. I'd love to see it because I'd love to put our heads together and just see. Because maybe we'll get the data when things come back online. Or maybe there's just no data, I don't know. But let's just do a little test. Let's see. Tell me how you feel. Tell me what you think the chart's doing. And let's compare notes together.